I want you to try a mental exercise with me. It's a bit strange, so stick with me.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
I want you to imagine that grammar, the stuff you probably slept through in middle school, the nouns, the verbs, all that. Imagine it isn't just a set of rules for writing.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine that grammar is actually a weapon system.
Wow. Okay, that is a hell of an opener. A weapon system.
I'm serious. The sources we're diving into today, they argue that the specific parts of speech you use to define yourself, whether you see yourself as a static noun or a moving verb, that choice literally determines whether you end up trapped or whether you stay free.
It sounds so abstract when you put it like that, and frankly, a little bit like a creative writing seminar gone rogue.
It does, I know.
But if you actually dig into the material we have in front of us, this is deadly serious stuff.
Mm.
The central argument here is that the way we structure our language is, well, it's identical to the way we structure our reality.
And the diagnosis is not good.
Not at all. The diagnosis is that we are structuring it completely wrong. We are, to use the text metaphor, suffocating ourselves with nouns when we should be surviving with verbs.
And we are looking at a mountain of material today. This is a deep dive into the work of the philosopher and poet Mampus Cronander. We've got two huge collections here, the Corpus of Being and the Kinetic Multitude.
And we also have a stage play, a really strange one called An Opera of Glass and Bone.
Right, and we are doing this on a very specific timeline, which is important to mention.
It is. It frames everything.
To orient you, the listener, today is Sunday, February 1st, 2026.
Which is not a random date, not in the slightest. This marks exactly 50 years since the death of a woman named Maria Lorena Barros.
In the history books, and more importantly in these texts, she is known as Ka Luz.
Comrade Light.
So here is the mission for this deep dive. It's a bit of a time travel experiment, really. We are going to try to understand how a guerrilla fighter living in the jungles of the Philippines in 1976,
A poet, a mother, a revolutionary.
how she serves as the actual, literal operating manual for surviving the digital age in 2026. We're going to unpack this conflict that Cronander describes as the war between noun fixity and verb ontology.
That's it. It is the battle between the monad sitting on a throne of glass and the guerrilla poet moving through the loam.
Now, I know what you're probably thinking. You're thinking, okay, this is a lot. I have a corporate job, I have a mortgage, I'm just trying to figure out the algorithm and pay my rent.
Why do I care about 1970s jungle warfare and, obscure grammatical theory?
Exactly. It's a fair question.
It's a very valid question. And the answer, according to these sources, is that you are likely living in what they call a Hegelian flask.
A Hegelian flask. That sounds oddly academic and uncomfortable.
It's really not a good place to be. Think of it as a high-pressure container of isolation. The source material argues that Western society, and increasingly global society, is experiencing social heat death.
Social heat death. Wow.
We are burning out. We are overheating collectively. And the core reason, is that we've forgotten how to move. We are standing when we should be yeeting.
Yeeting. We are absolutely going to get to that word. It is my favorite part of this entire stack of research.
It's a fantastic concept.
But before we get to the solution, we have to understand the problem. The sources identify a villain in this philosophy, an antagonist. The monad.
The monad.
So let's unpack this term. In this worldview, what exactly is a monad? Because to me, it sounds like something out of a bad sci-fi movie from the 80s.
And in a way, it is an alien. But it's an alien we've been trained to become, which is the terrifying part. In Cronander's philosophy, the monad represents the static noun.
The static noun.
It is the individual who attempts to freeze reality in order to own it.
Okay, freeze reality to own it. That feels a bit slippery. Give me a concrete example. How does someone do that?
Well, think about the most famous quote in all of Western philosophy, the one we all learn. Descartes. I think, therefore I am.
Cogito ergo sum.
Right.
The bedrock of modern thought.
Cronander argues that this statement is a trap, a fatal one. Because look at what it actually does, I think.
Okay.
It isolates the thinker inside their own head. It makes thought the primary reality, then therefore I am. It establishes your very existence based on that separation from the world.
You exist because you think, not because you do, or relate, or touch.
Precisely. It creates what the text calls a throne of glass. The monad sits on this throne, perfectly separated from everything else, watching the world through a screen or a window, but never actually touching it.
There's a line in the Corpus of Being that just floored me. It says the monad seeks to copyright the breath.
Exactly. It wants to turn everything into property, a brand,
Okay.
an asset, including its own identity. It wants to be a thing, a noun that can be owned and marketed.
And the text uses physics to describe this, which I found fascinating. It's not just philosophy.
No, it's very grounded in thermodynamics. The monad is described as an inert gas, or even better, a marble.
And the marble.
Yeah, picture a jar full of marbles.
Oh.
They're hard, they're distinct, their surfaces are polished and sealed. They're touching each other, sure, but they aren't connected. There's no bond.
And if you pour them out, they just scatter.
They scatter. They bounce off one another. They generate friction and heat from all that bumping, but they don't create a structure. They don't build anything. That is the monad. It's the hyper-individualized person who says, I am an island.
And the sources bring this right into the present day, into our world of 2026. They talk about a specific modern version, the helium monad.
This is the modern iteration.
Yeah.
This is us. The helium monad is the burnout subject. It's the person who views themselves as CEO of me, Inc.
Oh, I feel called out. I think most of us listening probably feel a little called out by that.
They're designed to. That's the entire architecture of our social and economic life. The helium monad is always rising, always self-optimizing, tracking their sleep, tracking their steps, curating their personal brand, optimizing their bio.
It's endless work.
It's endless. And for what? The text says they are ultimately lonely and overheating. They are rising like helium, but into a vacuum. There's nothing up there for them.
It calls this state a perfect frictionless prison. And that word frictionless is so interesting because you'd think friction is bad.
We're taught that it is. Seamless integration, effortless. But without friction, you have no traction. You can't grab onto anything. You can't push off of anything. You just spin.
And that spinning generates heat.
It generates heat. That's entropy. That's burnout, which is why everyone feels so exhausted. You're doing all this work, all this self-care, but you aren't actually connecting to a system that can sustain you. You're just a marble getting hotter and hotter in the jar.
So if the monad is the trap, this static, lonely noun what is the solution, the sources say the answer lies in the liberation of the verb.
Right. We have to fundamentally shift our understanding of what it means to be. We have to move from noun fixity, trying to be a static thing, to verb ontology.
To being a process.
Being a process. The argument here is that community isn't a thing. It's not a noun. You don't have a community like you have a car.
You do community.
You multitude.
Okay, let's look at this term, multituding. The text is very, very specific, that this is not the multitude, like a crowd of people standing in a square.
Correct. That's a crucial distinction. The multitude, as a noun, is just a bigger jar of marbles. It's still static. It can be counted, managed, polled. Cronander coins the verb to multitude. He defines it as nagentropic labor.
Nagentropic labor. Okay, that sounds like heavy lifting. Break that down for someone who didn't major in physics.
So entropy is the second law of thermodynamics. It's the tendency of all systems to fall apart, to get messy, to lose energy and order. Your coffee gets cold, buildings crumble over time.
Right, the universe trends towards chaos.
Exactly. Negentropy is the opposite. It's the energy you have to put in to keep things together, to create order and maintain it. Multituding means the constant, active work of maintaining social harmony.
It's not automatic.
Not at all. It requires energy to listen, to adjust, to sync up with other people. It's work. It's labor.
There is a beautiful example of this in the source text, multituding. The kinetic ontology of communal labor. It talks about the musical traditions of the Cordillera region in the Philippines.
Yes, the interplay between the gangsa and the salabao. It's a perfect illustration.
Can you explain how that works? Because I think this analogy really nails what multituding actually feels like versus just, being in a group.
Okay, so imagine a circle of people. Some are playing the gangsa, which are these flat gongs. They create this deep, resonant, interlocking rhythm. That's the communal baseline. That's the shared structure, the unity.
It's the groove that holds everyone together.
This is the groove. But then you have the salabao, which is this conical drum. And the drummer playing the salabao provides the individual flourish. They improvise. They add their own unique voice to the music.
And this is the key part, it improvises within the rhythm.
Precisely. That is the entire point. The salabao doesn't break the rhythm to show off. It enriches the rhythm. It makes the whole thing more complex and beautiful. This is the definition of multituding. Maintaining unity and difference.
Whereas the monad,
The monad, the marble, thinks that to be an individual, you have to be separate. You have to break the rhythm to be heard.
Yeah.
You have to be a completely different song, louder than everyone else.
Right. It's the difference between a solo artist trying to scream over a crowd to get attention.
And a jazz musician playing in the pocket.
That's a perfect analogy. The jazz musician is listening as much as they are playing. They are in constant dialogue.
That is nagentropic labor. That listening, that adjusting. And this brings us to that word you liked so much, the specific grammar of this collective movement.
Yeeting.
Y-E-D-I-N-G.
I honestly thought this was a typo when I first read it. I had to look it up. But it's an archaic English word.
It is. It's very obscure. It comes from the Middle English yade, which was the past tense of go, as in he yade to the store. But Cronander pulls it out of history and revives it to mean something very, very specific.
It's not just walking. It's not just going.
No, yading is the grammar of collective movement. To yade is to move as a distributed body across thick time.
Okay, thick time. That's a heavy concept. Let's unpack that a little.
Well, think about the monad again. The monad moves in punctual time, or what the text calls thin time.
Like now.
Exactly. Clock time, quarterly earnings reports, the 24-hour news cycle. It's just a series of disconnected points. Yeeting, on the other hand, happens in thick time. It has depth. It carries the past with it. It's a movement carried by what the text calls the heavy groove that history approves.
So when you're yeeting, you're not just walking by yourself. You're walking with your ancestors.
With your ancestors, with your community, with the future generations you are building for. It has weight. It has momentum.
The text has this great visual contrast. It says the monad is always looping or crashing out.
Right. Think of a bug zapper or a computer program stuck in a loop. That's the monad's movement. But the species being, the collective, it yeeds.
And the imagery used for yeeting is so biological, so earthy.
Very. It's described as having vegetal rhizomatic tenacity, like the roots of a tree or the network of a fungus.
Mycelial persistence.
Yes. Think about mycelium, the root network of mushrooms. It can spread for miles underground. It doesn't move fast in a way we recognize, but it moves with an unstoppable, persistent force. It breaks concrete. It transforms dead matter into new life.
And most importantly, a root or mycelial thread never moves alone.
It's definitionally part of a massive interconnected system. You literally cannot yeed alone. The text is clear on this. If you were moving by yourself, you were just walking. You might be hiking, you might be running. But if you are moving with the weight and support of your history and your community, you are yeeting.
I love that. It reframes movement itself. But let's ground this again. We've got the philosophy of monads versus multituding, nouns versus verbs. But the sources anchor this entire sprawling theory in a real person, a historical figure.
Maria Lorena Barros, Ka Luz.
And today, 50 years after her death, the text holds her up not as a saint or a martyr in the traditional sense, but as a kinetic model.
Right. It's important to clarify for those who don't know the history. She was an anthropology student, a brilliant poet, a mother, and a revolutionary in the Philippines during the Marcos dictatorship in the 1970s. She founded the Makibaka, which was a militant women's organization.
And she was eventually killed in an encounter with the military in 1976. She was only 28.
Just 28. But the source material, it isn't just giving us a biography. It's not just telling her life story as an elegy, a sad poem for the dead.
No, it's treating her as a philosophical archetype, as a blueprint.
A blueprint for this verb ontology.
Yeah.
And this is where we get that very specific, very strange title the text gives her. It calls her the midwife of the adverb.
Midwife of the adverb. Okay, that is not an intuitive phrase. What does that mean in the context of this whole grammatical theory?
It ties directly back to the grammar of war. The text argues she represents the transition from the static identity, the noun, to kinetic action, the verb. There is a concept mentioned throughout the poems about her called Laurie's logic. Laurie was her nickname.
Laurie's logic.
And the poems define this logic as the imperative to flow and relate rather than to simply stand.
There's a line that says her logic is written on shifting sand.
Yes. And normally in Western thought, that's a bad thing. It's a critique. You don't want to build your house on shifting sand. You want a rock. You want a solid foundation.
You want something static, a noun.
Exactly. To the monad, to the person sitting on the throne of glass, shifting sand looks like instability. It looks like chaos, weakness. But the gorilla to Ka Luz sand is tactical fluidity. You can move through it. You can bury yourself in it. You can change your shape.
It's adaptive.
It's incredibly adaptive. The monad is rigid and fragile, like that throne of glass. If you hit glass with a hammer, it shatters into 1,000 pieces. Ka Luz is flexible and resilient, like the bush she moved through. You can't shatter a jungle.
So let's dig deeper into this adverb idea. The text sets up a kind of grammatical equation. You have the verb, and then you have the adverb.
This is what Cronander calls the grammatical operator theory.
Huh.
So if you can, imagine the verb is the massive collective movement of the species. It's the surge of the people, the tidal wave of history. That is the verb. It's pure, raw energy.
Okay, so it's the big unstoppable wave, the movement itself.
But a wave can be formless. It can crash uselessly. It needs shape. It needs texture. It needs specific direction and style. That is the adverb. Ka Luz is described as the adverb. She modifies the verb. She changes how it moves.
There's a couplet in one of the poems. The adverb stealthily modifies the way we fight. It turns the heavy noun into a beam of light.
And that's the key insight. She represents the how, the specific local style of action that allows that huge abstract mass movement to actually happen in the real world. It's not about being the leader, the noun. It's about influencing the quality of the action.
She is described as the molecule of grace.
The molecule of grace that shapes the wave. It's poetry, but it's also a profound strategic insight.
How so?
It's a complete reframing of leadership. She isn't the now. She isn't the king or the president or the owner of the revolution. She doesn't own the action. She colors it. She gives it nuance, compassion, intelligence. She's not the wave. She's the current within the wave that gives it its devastating or its creative power.
And this is where the sources take a massive, almost breathtaking leap. We've been talking about 1976, about jungles and gongs. But the authors take this figure, this adverb from the 70s, and draw a direct, unbroken line to, well, to us, to the internet, to the algorithm.
This is the transhistorical lineage. And honestly, this is the most mind-bending part of the entire analysis. It can feel like a stretch at first.
It really can. The text says there is a direct line from Ka Luz's jungle footfall to thumb-tapped thumbprint.
Just think about that for a second. The rhythm. The physical rhythm of walking carefully, deliberately through a jungle step, step, step. And the rhythm of scrolling, typing, interacting on a phone, tap, tap, tap. Cronander argues that the grammar of resistance is identical, even if the terrain has changed beyond all recognition.
The environment has changed, but the syntax is the same. Move, flow, relate, become.
Exactly. So the question becomes, what does it mean to be a guerrilla in this new terrain?
The digital bush.
Yes. The text argues that for the modern guerrilla, the person trying to resist the social heat death of the algorithm, the screen is the new canopy. Code is the new camouflage.
There's this really vivid image of pixel fire blooming red with flowers, and it talks about hashtag trails.
Right. Think about it. In the jungle, a guerrilla leaves a trail for their comrades. A broken twig, a pile of stones, bent grass. It's a subtle language that the enemy can't read.
Well, your people can.
But your people can. In the digital space, the hashtag trail or the curated link can serve the exact same function. It's a marker for those who seek the spark. It's a way to find your people in the overwhelming darkness without alerting the predator.
But instead of fighting soldiers, we're fighting what? Who is the enemy in 2026, according to this framework?
We're fighting CLIOS.
CLIOS. That sounds like a supervillain's AI system.
It basically is. It's an acronym. It stands for the Liberal Imperial Monolith, or, in the thermodynamic text, the complex, large-scale, interconnected, open socio-technical system.
That's a mouthful.
It is. So let's just call it the algorithm. It is the machine, the system, that tries to freeze the verb into a noun.
Okay, how does it do that? How does a computer system freeze a verb? That sounds like a category error.
It does it by turning movements into trademarks. It does it by turning identities into what the test calls heat sinks.
Heat sinks. Okay, we're back to physics. A heat sink in a computer draws heat away from the processor to stop it from melting.
Precisely. Now, apply that to social energy. Imagine you have a lot of anger, a lot of passion about the state of the world. That is energy. That is heat. If that heat builds up, it could threaten to melt the whole system down.
So CLIOS needs to manage that heat.
It needs to dissipate it safely, so it gives you a category. It creates a silo. It says, oh, you are this specific demographic. You are a leftist gamer or a right-wing trad mom. It gives you a label, a noun. It puts you in a silo, a heat sink.
And then it encourages you to fight horizontally against other silos.
Exactly. You end up spending all your energy, all that revolutionary heat in flame wars within the heat sink.
Yeah.
You fight the person in the comments section instead of challenging the architecture of the machine that pitted you against each other.
You become a helium monad, hot, angry, but rising alone in your silo. You never connect horizontally to form a real structure. You never yade.
You never yade. The system has successfully frozen your verb, your anger, your desire for change into a static, marketable noun, an identity category.
So how does the digital gorilla fight back against that? What is the strategy if you can't shoot the algorithm?
You shadow ban the ego.
Shadow ban the ego. I love that phrasing. What does it look like in practice?
The text says the gorilla operates as fluid text inside the prison cell. While the monad is brain-fried and blanking on its own name, that's that burnout we talked about, the gorilla is conjugating in the dark.
Conjugating in the dark.
It means they are building connections that the algorithm can't see or properly monetize. They are creating what the text calls supply lines of meaning.
Supply lines. There's that military language again.
It's all part of the same grammar. In the jungle, you need supply lines for food, for medicine, for ammunition. In the biting dark of information overload, the most scarce resource isn't food. It's meaning. It's hope. It's genuine human connection.
So the digital gorilla provides that supply line.
They smuggle meaning past the gates of property. A private group chat, a shared document, a real-life meeting, anything that builds the web instead of the wall.
This brings us to the science of it all. We've touched on it a few times, but the sources go incredibly deep into what they call the thermodynamics of the soul. This is where the philosophy gets really hard-nosed and predictive.
This is where Kronander combines mysticism with physics to make a stark argument for why the current system is doomed to fail.
And it all starts with the problem of entropy.
So, as we said, thermodynamics teaches us that closed systems tend toward disorder. That's entropy. CLIOS, the global capitalist system, is described as a massive heat engine. Like any engine, it takes in fuel, does work, and produces exhaust.
It extracts value, which the text calls enthalpy, and it dumps waste, which is entropy.
And historically, for centuries, that waste, that social, economic, and literal trash was dumped on the periphery.
Right. Colonialism was basically the world's biggest entropy dump. You keep the center of the empire hot and clean by making the colonies chaotic and messy. You dump your pollution, your wars, your instability somewhere else.
But the source argues we have reached a crisis point, a terminal point. It's called the entropy boomerang.
There is no somewhere else left. The earth is round and it's full.
Exactly. The waste is coming back to the center. It has nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
That's why we see institutional collapse, the climate crisis, this staggering mental health crisis happening in the wealthiest countries on earth. The Hegelian flask is overheating, the pressure is building up inside the jar, and there's no release valve.
And the inert gas problem, the fact that we are all isolated monads, makes it so much worse.
So much worse. Remember the marbles. The system spent 500 years turning people into isolated monads inert gas because they are easier to manage as movable labor. You can move a marble from this factory to that one.
But the problem with inert gas, or a jar of marbles, is that when you put it under pressure, it doesn't hold together. It doesn't form a structure.
It just gets hotter. The particles just bounce off each other faster and more violently. That's the social breakdown we're seeing. When a real crisis hits, society dissolves into individuals fighting for their own survival because we've forgotten how to connect. Marbles don't build walls to protect each other. They just scatter.
So what is the solution? How do we stop being marbles? How do we release the pressure in the flask without it exploding?
The solution offered is kenosis.
Kenosis, that is a theological term, isn't it, from Christianity?
It is. It originally refers to Christ emptying himself of his divinity to become human. But here, Kronander secularizes it and applies it to the revolutionary subject. It means the emptying of the self.
There is a command in the text that is quite violent. It says, digest your own monads.
Digest your own monads, smash the mirror down, and look clearly up. It's a visceral, shocking image. You have to dissolve the shell of the ego, that hard, polished silica shell that makes you a marble. You have to stop protecting your brand, your separate identity, so fiercely.
And when you dissolve that shell, what are you left with? What do you become?
You become species being. The German is Gattungswesen.
That's the old Marxian term for humanity's potential to act as a conscious collective subject.
It is, but Kronander gives it a physical, almost chemical definition. He calls it the fluid electrolyte. Or, even better, my favorite analogy in the whole book, Lego bricks.
I much prefer Lego bricks. It's so much easier to visualize.
It's the perfect counter-image to the marble. A marble is smooth and sealed and self-contained. A Lego brick is fundamentally incomplete. It has scuds and grooves. It is literally designed to connect.
A single Lego brick is kind of useless. Its entire purpose is to connect to another one.
Exactly. Its identity is its connectivity. So the goal of kenosis is to turn marbles back into Legos. to dissolve the smooth, self-obsessed ego and reveal the connective, relational self underneath.
To form a structure, a web that can actually resist the extraction engine.
Because a pile of Legos locked together, that has structural integrity. You can't just kick that over. It can withstand the pressure of the entropy boomerang. It can build something new.
And the text offers a practical tool for this, a sort of daily practice. It's called the conductivity test.
This is something you, the listener, can use today, right now. For every action you take, whether you are posting something online, writing a company policy, or just talking to a neighbor, you ask yourself one simple question.
Does this build a wall or does it build a web?
Does it isolate the particle or does it connect the electrolyte?
If the action emphasizes your difference, your superiority, your special status, your isolation, it builds a wall. It makes you more of a marble.
If it creates a connection, a shared dependency, a vulnerability, a common project, it builds a web. It makes you more of a Lego.
It's a simple binary, but it's incredibly powerful when you start applying it to everything.
It's the only metric that matters in an overheating system. Are you insulating or are you conducting?
We are nearing the end of our dive here, and I want to look at the outro of the source material itself. In the play, an opera of glass and bone, there is a mention of an unwritten fourth act.
Yes, it's a fascinating device. The narrator literally breaks the fourth wall and tells the audience that the play cannot be finished by the author.
Why not? Is it incomplete?
No, it's intentionally unwritten. Because the fourth act is the future. It has to be rehearsed in the streets. It's up to us, the audience, to write it with our actions.
And it presents a clear choice. Path A versus Path B.
Path A is the vacuum state. That's the perfect prison. It's a world where AI and automation create total convenience and total isolation. You are safe, you are fed, you are entertained, but you are a marble in a jar forever.
Social heat death. The end of history as a flat line.
Yes. Path B is the civilization of the commons, the counterforge. This is the world where we use our technology not to isolate, but to coordinate, to automate necessity, so that we can free up human time to do relational work.
Relational work like care, art, education, stewardship of the planet.
Exactly. The things that require multituding. The things a machine can't do because they require that nigentropic labor of connection.
And this brings us to the final concept in the text, signing.
Signing. It's the Tagalog word for art. But in this context, it's defined as the counter-architecture. It is, and I love this quote, the oldest operating system of the species.
The idea of art as an operating system. Not just a decoration on the wall, but fundamental code.
It's the code that allows us to connect in non-transactional ways. It's the technology of the web. When we create together, when we sing together, when we dance, when we march, we are running the signing OS. We are rebooting the human system.
So let's try to synthesize all of this. This has been a heavy, heavy stack of sources.
It's a lot to take in.
We started with grammar. We went from the static noun of the lonely ego, the monad on the throne of glass.
And we moved to the insurgent verb, the active connective work of multituding.
We traced the path from Ka Luz's jungle footfall in 1976.
All the way to the thumb-tapped thumbprint of the digital gorilla in 2026.
We learned about yeeting, moving with the weight of history, and we learned about the conductivity test, the daily practice of building webs instead of walls.
It's a journey from being a marble to being a Lego brick, from friction to flow, from inert gas to a living electrolyte.
And the text leaves us with this one final, provocative, and honestly quite beautiful image. It says, the gorilla poet sleeps, the verb moves on ahead.
It's a reminder that the movement is bigger than any single individual. Ka Luz died 50 years ago today. Her body, the noun, is gone. But the grammar she used, the grammar of resistance, of connection, of care, is still conjugating.
It's still active. The verb is still in motion.
It is. The body may be gone, but the verb continues. It finds new subjects, new objects, new places.
So here's the question we want to leave you with, listener. In a world that is trying desperately, with trillions of dollars of infrastructure, to turn you into a static noun, to turn you into a trademark, a profile, a marble, how will you conjugate your life today?
Will you be the wall or will you be the web?
The choice is yours. And remember, you don't have to yeet alone.
Mabui to the flow.
Mabui to the flow. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.